Okay, so in the second lesson on this one, we're going to be looking how to write to a file. Now, once you know how to read from a file, writing to a file is actually quite straightforward. There's a few little caveats, a few little things you have to bear in mind, which we'll go over in this video. In the last video, we looked at the book analogy for a file. So we have to open the file up before we can read it, and then we have to close it again once we finish. The same goes for writing to a file. So I need to open the file up in write mode. Then I can do my writing. I can add stuff to the file, and then I must close it once I've finished. Okay, so we must open the book before we write to it, and we must close it when we've finished. So here's some code to actually write to a file. So first of all, I have my open command again, like we did before. I have the name of the file that I'm trying to open, and then I've got it in write mode. Now, one big difference between read and write is that when I go to write it, if the file does not exist, it is created. So you'll get a brand new file if one does not exist. If it does exist, any contents within it gets destroyed. Okay, so what write does is it creates a brand new file every single time you call it. Okay, so any old values will always get deleted. Now I've just got a variable with a number in it. That's very straightforward. And then I'm going to write it to a file. Now, when I read from a file, if you remember, it always reads in text, always reads in the string. The same goes for writing to file. I always want to write a string to the file. So I've got a number here. So I need to cast it first using the str command, cast to string, and then write it. So I cast the school to a string, and then finally I will write it to a file. So that's the kind of order. Remember, in Python coding, you always do the stuff inside brackets first. So this one gets done first, and then it does the writing. And then finally, we must close, just get into good habit of closing files. We made a big deal of this in the last video, but just a reminder that when we are dealing with file access, we must have two files effectively. One file is the Python file where you can add your code, and the other file is going to be the file we are writing to. Okay, so that is actually really, really important, because otherwise you'll get yourself in a bit of a tiz very quickly. Okay, so this program will create a file called mates.txt, and it's going to store in the name of friends that you may have. You can keep entering the names of friends until you enter nothing. So the first line of code is going to open the file up in write mode. Okay, this will create a brand new file if it's not there already, and anything in the old file will be deleted. We'll then ask for a friend to be entered, so a mate to be entered. Then it's going to keep looping while mate is not empty. It will write that mate to the file. Okay, so here I've got the file handle best mates file, which is created here. And then I use the write command to actually write out the string that I've entered with this input. Then just a little bit of reminder text saying enter nothing to end, and then I'll ask for another mate. This loop will just keep going until I enter nothing, so I just press enter, and then it'll close. So let's run this program, let's see what happens. So I'm going to run the program. So let's enter name mate. I know I'm going to enter the name Sally, then maybe Fiona, and maybe Zubair. And now that I've had enough, that's enough for me. I've only got 3 friends. I hit enter to stop. Now, it looks like nothing's happened, and one of the things that students get confused by is this idea that they can't see any output on the screen, so it hasn't worked. But it has. So let's look at the file that's been created. So I've got this file, mates.txt, but it's been created. So I'm going to open this up separately. And here you can see the 3 names are there. So it's got Sally, Fiona, and Zubair. Now, although the names are there, you probably notice straight away there is a problem. Now, really, we probably want the output to look like this. So why hasn't it done that? Well, in Python, when you do a write, it doesn't automatically put a new line character on. So if I come back to the text file, okay, I actually have to actually press enter to put a new line. What we have in ASCII files is a new line character, which is there to basically tell whatever program's opening up the file that the next line should be on the new line. Okay, so it's a new line character. So how do we add a new line character? Well,
that is fairly straightforward. So where I'm writing mate out, I'm going to just put a plus. So I'm going to do string concatenation. I'm going to add a string, and I'm going to put a /n. Now I always forget which way around this slash goes. I think I've got it right. So let's run it and test. So I'm going to run it again, and I'm going to enter the three names again. So Sally, Fiona, and Zubair. Then hit nothing. Go back to my file. Let's leave that file. Let's open it up again. And there we go. You can see the three names are on a separate line. Okay, let's just make sure that is really working. So I'm just going to run the program again, this time with different names. I don't know, Ben, Susan, and Neil. Hit nothing. Then go back, open the file up again, and you can see those are all on separate lines. So two things to take home from this. First of all, to write to a file, we have to use the .write. But secondly, if I want those to be on new lines, I have to put this special new line character in there. Now, this little slash is called an escape character, and the /n is the escape character for new line, because you can't really just type in the word new line, because it will just print out new line. So it's just a way of programming languages show that should be a new line character. This is very common in programming languages, so it's very similar in C++, for example, and other languages. So you will see this quite a lot if you go on the internet and search for things like this. Okay, so here's a practice task. Now, you need to write a program which will act as a notepad. So what I mean by that is, if you ever opened up a notepad in Windows, so you open that program up, you've got a little white box, you can type whatever you wanted, just text, nothing fancy at all, and you can save it as a text file. So we're going to kind of create our own version of that, but rather than being able to do editing, things like that, we're just simply going to enter one sentence at a time, press enter, and keep going until they enter done. So you need to open new file up, and that's going to be almost identical to this one. Then you're going to ask the user to enter a sentence, which is going to be almost identical to these two lines of code here. Then when the user enters the word done, it will stop, which is going to be very similar to this code here and this code here. Okay, and you always need to close your file regardless. So really this practice task is just getting you to take this code and adapt it slightly. Okay, the changes you need to make are actually quite small, but it's good practice just to get you know which bits you would need to change in order to do something new. So here's the model answer. As I said before, there's very few changes. We've changed the name of the file we're creating, so that is literally just changing that. We've changed the name of the variable just to make it more readable. We've changed the name of the variable here again, sentence instead of mate. And then we've made changes here. Okay, so we've changed the name of the variables. I've just noticed I've made a slight mistake there when I took the screenshot here. That actually should have done inside it. Okay, because we need to enter done here. Okay, that's my mistake, never mind. I'm sure you'll forgive me. And that's the only changes. So it's really straightforward little task, but it's a good one to practice. Now this challenge task is a bit more meaty, something to get your teeth stuck into. You might have done something similar to this before, so if you have, please do take the code you've written in the past and just adapt it. That is absolutely okay. But what I want you to do is essentially create a program which will pick two random numbers. Okay, it will then display it as a sum. So if, I don't know, if it's picked the numbers 5 and 9, it will print out what's 5 plus 9. If it picked the numbers 2 and 3, it will say what is 2 plus 3. It will then ask the user for the answer. Okay, remember that needs to be cast to an integer. Then it will check to see if they're right or not. So you're going to need a selection statement, an if statement to check that. If it is correct, you need to add 1 to a score. So you're going to need a variable score, which will keep track of that. Then you're going to need a counter loop to repeat that code 10 times. Okay, it's really important you're repeating all of this code. Okay, if you don't repeat all that code, it's not going to work properly. So do make sure you are repeating, including picking two random numbers.
Once that's happened, you can ask them for their name, so just a simple input, and then finally you're going to write the score to a file called scores.txt. Okay, so the name of the score to a file. On the next, so pause the video now, have a go at that, and then I'm going to explain the model answer for that. Okay, so let's work through this problem. So the first thing we need to do is to pick two random numbers, and those random numbers are going to output as a sum. So from random import star, and then we're going to have num1 equals randint 1, 10 maybe, and then I'm going to do the same for number 2. Then I'm going to display that as a sum. So I can go print what is num1 plus num2, and I can ask the user for an answer equals int input Then I'm going to work the answer out myself. So total equals num1 plus num2. And then I'm going to check to see if they're right. So if total equals answer, print correct, else print not correct. So that's the beginning of it. We now need a variable to store the score. So score equals 0. And then if it's correct, we go score equals score plus 1. The next thing I need to do is repeat it 10 times. So to do that, I'm going to have a count, which starts as 1, then go while count is less or equal to 10. And I'm going to put all this code inside it. So all this is what I want to repeat. Okay, so now I've got my quiz essentially, which will ask 10 questions, 10 simple addition questions. Now the next thing we want to do is to output the user's name and what score they've got. So let's look at that part of the code. So the next thing I need to do is, I don't know, let's call this score file. Open scores.txt in write mode. Okay, this will allow me to write to a file. Then I need to create a string that I'm going to output. Now, I'm going to put this onto one line. So I'm going to ask for the name equals input. What is your name? And then I'm going to have line to write, which is going to be the name plus a space plus the score. Now notice I've cast the score to a string, so if it didn't do that, what happened is I'll get a kind of casting error because I can't add a number and a string together. Also, if I don't put space in between them, they will be right next to each other. You can't, because this is a common mistake, do that, okay, because Python will give you an error. The reason for that is because that only works with print. There is a technical answer to why that is the case, which I don't really want to go into right now because it will take a little bit of time. So just, you have to trust me that you should use string concatenation, i.e. pluses, not commas. So the next thing you need to do is write it to the file. So score underscore file dot write, line to write. Now I need to write one line out, so I don't need to worry about new line characters. And then I need to close my file. So score file.close. And there is the full answer.